Uncovered grows up believing you can only depend on yourself to survive, but when he falls for a lying street girl named Ari, this loner starts wasting his best friend's money chasing after a woman who's been playing him from day one. However, before any of this, in 1955, a bus drives through the city in heavy rain and stops at a station where 6 men wearing masks get on with a police officer. When the people on the bus see them, they all get scared and start saying that these men are criminals. The bus starts moving again, and during the ride a small girl drops her doll on the floor, so one of the masked men picks it up and gives it back to her, but when she sees his face by accident the girl gets frightened and begins to cry right away. After some time passes, the bus finally stops again at another station where the group of criminals together with the officer step outside, but right after that the officer suddenly begins hitting the boy very hard because he had touched the little girl's toy earlier. It has already been 10 years since Japan lost the war, and the country is still suffering from poverty, with the adults being the ones who carry most of the pain and the struggles caused by the war. Later on, the boys are taken to meet a freaky doctor, who works as the prison's doctor. He makes them go through a painful checkup by pressing and examining the sides of each boy's cheeks one by one. Feeling humiliated, the boys are taken away and led into a room that looks almost like a prison cell, and after going through such terrible treatment neither of them is able to keep their strength of mind anymore, knowing that this is only the very beginning for them at the bottom of what feels like the cauldron of hell. The inspector then brings them straight to another room and tells them that they should ask the man inside about what is going to happen next. When they enter, they see a strange man who is sitting quietly, and when one of the boys asks him to introduce himself, the man suddenly begins insulting them instead of answering normally. After that moment, one of the boys loses his patience and tries to start a fight with the strange man, but the man quickly smacks him hard using just his book and then suddenly stands in a proper boxing stance. The man does not stop there and ends up knocking out all 6 of the boys one after another, and the first boy who gets knocked down is Mario, who once became known for beating up his teacher after the teacher tried to harass a female student. The second one is Tadayoshi, whose nickname is Soldier, followed by the short boy called Turtle. After them comes another boy named Ju, who is the youngest of the group. After him, there are the last 2 boys, one who is called Cabbage and another who is known as Uncovered. After some time passes, Ishihara, who is known as the school's cruel and sadistic head guard, suddenly walks into the cell and begins to violently beat Sakuragi as a form of punishment, while the rest of the boys are forced to just stand by and watch without being able to do anything to help him. Later on, after Sakuragi slowly regains consciousness, he quietly accepts a hidden cigarette that Joe offers him, and then he lights it up and chooses to share it with the others around him. Because of these strong but also kind-hearted actions, Sakuragi quickly gains respect and deep admiration of all 6 boys, who start looking up to him right away. A whole month goes by since the 6 boys were sent into the prison school, and during this time Sakuragi begins to train them by using his boxing skills. While they are practicing, Soldier looks at Mario and tells him that he should give up on the dream of becoming a boxer because he always gets tired too quickly during the workouts. At the same time, Turtle and Joe decide to fool around and enjoy playing some games instead of focusing on their exercises, which makes Soldier shout at them to start training properly, but Turtle only shows off his teeth and says that his teeth are the strongest weapon he has. Then Uncovered comments that one simple cut on his neck would be enough to kill him instantly, but he explains that he has been surviving on his own for 10 long years already, and to him this prison feels more like heaven. He then turns to Joe and asks if he feels the same way about living here, but Joe explains that he has a younger sister named Meg who is still outside, and the hope of meeting her again is the only thing that gives him the strength to endure the harsh life. Right at that moment, Ishihara suddenly shows up and tells Joe that someone has come to visit him, which makes all the boys start wondering if it could really be his sister, but Sakuragi reminds them that minors are not allowed to visit this place. Meanwhile, Joe walks into the visitor's room and is shocked to see a woman with a disgusting-looking face, which frightens him. When Joe finally comes back, he explains to everyone that the woman he met was actually the director of his orphanage, and she told him that his little sister Meg is about to be taken in by a foster father. Sometime later, all the boys are preparing to take a bath together, but at that exact moment the gate of the school suddenly opens and Joe finds himself unable to look away while his mind keeps drifting back to thoughts of his sister. Filled with fear that he might never get the chance to see her again, he looks hopeless, but then Turtle suddenly bites his own arm and begins screaming loudly that a snake has attacked him, which causes confusion among the guards. Using this distraction, Joe quickly takes the chance to run away through an entrance that is left unguarded. Afterward, Ishihara is given 48 hours to find Joe, but Joe runs as fast as he could to reach the orphanage. Meanwhile, the boys are harshly beaten by the guards and then locked away in solitary confinement as punishment, where they are left to suffer in silence. During this time, Turtle begins to share his painful past with the others, explaining how he lost his entire family in the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and why the tragedy made him want to help Joe escape, even if it meant risking his own safety. Meanwhile, Joe reaches the orphanage and tries desperately to run away with his sister Meg, but the police catch him before he can get very far. In order to protect him from more trouble, his sister pretends to reject him and sends him away, even though it hurts her deeply inside. Heartbroken and filled with despair, Joe is dragged back to school by the authorities and thrown into solitary confinement just like the others. 2 weeks later, Joe is finally released from solitary confinement and sent back to his cell, where he apologizes to everyone for what happened, but the boys still ask him about his sister because they want to know the truth. Joe then explains everything to them, saying that his sister told him he has to live on his own now since they no longer have any relatives who can take care of them. Hearing this, Sakuragi steps forward and tries to comfort him, telling Joe that they should take care of his injuries and fix the bruises on his body, but Joe breaks down and starts crying in front of everyone. Even though Uncovered still holds some anger inside toward Joe for what happened, Sakuragi reminds them that a chance to escape from this place only comes once in a blue moon, and whenever it does appear, they must be ready to take it no matter what. Later on, Joe tells Mario about his dream, saying that one day he wants to become a singer, and from that moment he makes a firm decision to survive no matter what and to eventually reunite with his sister again in the future. At the same time, Ishihara watches the boys carefully and notices how they are starting to get along with each other, but deep inside he feels nothing but hatred toward Sakuragi in particular. Filled with jealousy and anger, Ishihara secretly approaches Uncovered and tells him that Sakuragi was the one who murdered his own parents. After hearing this shocking claim, Uncovered walks into the dining hall and tells everyone that Sakuragi is actually a killer who murdered his parents with his own hands. This makes Sakuragi lose his temper, and he tries to beat up Uncovered, but before he can do much, Ishihara grabs him and delivers a harsh beating, showing once again how much he despises Sakuragi for being the only student in the school who is never afraid of him. Ishihara even remembers the time Sakuragi looked him straight in the eyes and told him that one day he would make him wish he were dead. After this, Sakuragi returns to the cell, but Uncovered immediately shows his dislike for his presence and walks out, pretending that he needs to go to the library to do some research. A little later, Mario tries to ask Sakuragi about what really happened earlier, but Sakuragi suddenly slaps him and coldly says that he is just a kid who cannot understand. Then he also storms off and heads toward the library as well. Meanwhile, Uncovered begins to recall the painful memories of his early childhood, when his family was extremely poor and his mother was forced to let herself be exploited just so she could get food for them to survive, and because of this trauma he slowly grew up with a deep distrust toward other people. While this is going on, Ishihara happens to catch Uncovered with a secret stash of hidden cigarettes, and this discovery gives him another chance to tighten his grip of control over the boy. Using Uncovered's fear against him, Ishihara comes up with a cruel plan to frame Sakuragi and make him take the blame. During this time, a fire suddenly breaks out after Uncovered carelessly tosses away one of his cigarettes, and the flames spread quickly, forcing the guards to begin evacuating the cells. Uncovered is shocked and horrified when he sees Ishihara deliberately throw away the key to cell 6, clearly trying to trap Sakuragi inside the fire and let him die there. Outside, Sakuragi runs into Uncovered and angrily demands answers, but when he learns that the rest of the boys are still locked inside the burning building, he wastes no time and immediately rushes back into the flames in order to save them. Afterward, Sakuragi reaches the spot and sees all of the boys lying weakly on the ground, and even in such a terrible moment they smile with relief and happiness when they notice that Sakuragi has come back for them. Sakuragi immediately rushes to the gate and tries hard to open it so they can all get out, but the lock will not move no matter how much he struggles with it. Even though the others keep telling him that forcing it is useless and that it will never work, Sakuragi continues to push with all his strength, refusing to give up. Watching this, Uncovered is left in shock because he cannot understand why Sakuragi would risk his own life for other people, since he has always believed that in this world you can only depend on yourself to survive. Outside, Uncovered desperately searches around for the lost cell key until he finally manages to find it, but right then Ishihara shows up and angrily demands that he hand it over. Uncovered, for the first time, refuses to obey and says he will not give it up, because this time he wants to save the others. Hearing this makes Ishihara furious, and he begins to beat Uncovered brutally, punishing him for even daring to think about helping anyone else instead of only looking out for himself. Meanwhile, inside the prison building, the fire grows stronger and the walls start to collapse, with Sakuragi being knocked to the ground by a large piece of flaming debris. Mario quickly notices that Sakuragi's leg is trapped under the rubble, but Sakuragi still keeps faith and tells them that Uncovered will come. Just then, Uncovered rushes inside through the smoke and bravely rescues Sakuragi, and manages to free the others as well. On the other hand, Ishihara stands outside and believes that Sakuragi and all the others must have finally died inside the fire, but his eyes go wide in shock when he suddenly sees every single one of them walking out of the burning building alive. Before he can even react properly, Sakuragi steps forward and delivers a powerful punch that knocks Ishihara out cold, leaving him completely stunned. Right after that, Sakuragi's body gives in from all the pain and exhaustion, and he collapses on the ground, forcing the others to rush him to the hospital so he can recover from his serious injuries. Later on, Sakuragi slowly wakes up in the hospital and immediately asks the nurse about Mario and the others, but she tells him that all of them are safe and doing fine. She even adds that the boys went so far as to make the doctor promise that he would do everything possible to save Sakuragi's life. Hearing this, he begins to share a piece of his past, telling the nurse how much he used to admire his father, who had once been a soldier. While Sakuragi speaks, the other boys quietly stand outside the room and overhear every word from behind the door. He continues his story and explains that after the war ended, his father came back home as a broken man who was no longer the hero he once was. One night, unable to hold his feelings in, Sakuragi confronted his father and told him directly that he had lost all respect for him. A short time later, Sakuragi's father takes his own life, and ever since then Sakuragi has carried the heavy belief that he had in some way murdered his own father. He feels this way because he never tried to truly understand the pain his father was living with, and he thinks that his own cruel and hurtful words were what pushed his father to commit suicide. Sakuragi explains that he never wants to lose anyone important to him again, and that now the other boys are the closest friends he has ever had in his life. The boys, who are secretly listening to this story from behind the door, feel deeply moved. Back to the present, the boys then enter Sakuragi's room and the nurse says that Sakuragi is going to stay here 2 more months to recover from his injuries. Sometime later, the boys are moved into a smaller temporary cell, and Ishihara is finally placed under house arrest, which leads to him being replaced by another guard named Kumagai. For the first time since they first arrived at the school, the boys no longer have to live in fear of Ishihara, and they are finally able to experience a little peace and quiet inside their cell. During this period, the head doctor has a private talk with the nurse and tells her that he is ready to release Sakuragi because he knows just how badly Sakuragi wants to return. Before long, Sakuragi comes back to the cell, and from then on the boys slowly begin to work together with him, building a stronger sense of teamwork than ever before. Sakuragi tells the boys that he is going to be released within a month, and once he is free, he plans to start boxing again and chase after his dream. Hearing this makes the others excited, and one by one they begin to share the things they want to do once they finally get out of school and return to the outside world. Mario, however, cannot think of anything for himself, so Sakuragi encourages him by saying that he should also try boxing, since he has already shown that he has some natural talent for it. Before they return to the school grounds, all of the boys take a moment together to carve their dreams into the trunk of a large tree, making a promise to meet again at that very same spot after they are all released. Meanwhile, Ishihara makes his return and secretly teams up with Dr. Sasaki to create a plan to deal with Sakuragi, knowing that his release is only a month away. As part of their scheme, Sakuragi is removed from cell 2 to 6 and transferred into a different cell that is filled with several large and powerful boys. Every night, these boys gang up on him and beat him brutally, trying to break his spirit, but no matter how much pain he suffers, Sakuragi endures it all and still manages to keep a smile on his face, which only makes his attackers more frustrated and angrier with him. When Mario learns about the beatings that Sakuragi is going through every night, he desperately begs the bullies to let him take Sakuragi's place instead, offering himself if it means they will spare his friend. The bullies accept his offer, but they cruelly beat Mario and even smash his right hand with a heavy stone, leaving him in terrible pain. Later that night, they return to Sakuragi's cell and mock him, bragging about how they shattered Mario's hand just to hurt him even more. Hearing this makes Sakuragi's anger explode, and with one powerful punch he smashes the ringleader's face, knocking him down instantly. The other bullies freeze in shock as Sakuragi glares at them and tell them that he was willing to endure all their abuse and suffering without fighting back, but the moment they laid a hand on his friend, they crossed the line. Afterward, the other bullies rush at Sakuragi all at once, trying to take him down, while Ishihara stands outside the cell listening carefully with a cruel smile on his face. He is so sure that Sakuragi will finally be killed that he even calls the head doctor and tells him to stop by tomorrow so he can sign Sakuragi's death certificate. But when morning comes, Ishihara unlocks the cell door and is completely shocked to see the bullies lying on the ground beaten, bloody, and unable to stand. Panicking, he kneels beside one of them and demands to know if Sakuragi is the one who did this, but the boy, still trembling from the beating, refuses to answer and weakly says it wasn't him. None of the bullies dare to admit the truth, all of them too scared of Sakuragi after what happened, and this silence makes Ishihara furious as he storms out of the cell in a blind rage. Meanwhile, Kumagai visits Mario in the hospital and asks him if there is a problem with how Ishihara has been treating Sakuragi, but Mario stays silent and refuses to answer, so Kumagai leaves without pressing him further. On the other hand, back at the school, the boys are sitting together and talking with each other about small things, but when they all leave, the doctor stops Joe and tells him to come to his office to play. Just then, Sakuragi arrives and the boys are overjoyed to see him again, their faces lighting up. Later that day, Ishihara enters the doctor's office and the doctor suggests that if Sakuragi won't bend under pressure, then Ishihara should find a way to make Sakuragi break the rules himself by forcing him to hurt his own friends. Realizing Ishihara's true goal, the boys endure the abuse in silence, determined not to give him the satisfaction of turning Sakuragi against them. But Sakuragi, unable to watch his friends suffer any longer, finally snaps and grabs Ishihara. As punishment, he is thrown into solitary confinement. Ishihara, seizing the opportunity, decides to starve Sakuragi to death and tells the doctor that they cannot allow him to leave alive not after everything he knows. 1 year before this time, Sakuragi stays in the same jail cell with a boy who goes by the name Iaichi. The doctor keeps hurting this boy in terrible ways over and over again. The bad things that happen to Iaichi break his spirit and he cannot take the pain and suffering anymore. Iaichi decides to end his own life in a very sad way. This awful memory stays with Sakuragi all the time and makes him feel very heavy inside. When Ishihara and Sasaki think about what Sakuragi knows and remembers, they become more determined than ever to make sure he never talks about these things again. At the same time, Kumagai walks over to the boys who live in cell 2-6 and tells them about the mean and terrible plan that Ishihara has made. When the boys hear about this plan, they feel shocked and scared, and they start looking everywhere for some way they can help Sakuragi get through this hard time. Turtle thinks of a good idea and decides to be very brave by secretly bringing food to Sakuragi, who is locked up all by himself in the punishment cell. The food that Turtle sneaks in gives Sakuragi the energy and strength he needs to keep going through his punishment. Every time Sakuragi gets one of these secret meals that Turtle brings him, it does not just make his body feel better and stronger, but it also makes his heart feel hopeful again and gives him the desire to keep fighting because he realizes that his friends care about him and he does not have to face this terrible situation all alone. After 10 long days pass, Ishihara goes to check Sakuragi's cell again, and at first he thinks that Sakuragi might already be dead since he has not had any food or water during all that time. But to his shock and surprise, Sakuragi is still alive inside the cell, and the sight actually makes Ishihara feel scared. Ishihara becomes furious and cannot believe that Sakuragi is still surviving even after more than 2 weeks of complete starvation, without knowing that Turtle at first and later guard Kumagai have both been secretly giving him food to keep him alive. In a hurry, Ishihara calls the doctor, and the doctor tells him to get the water hose ready, warning that they will need to use some rough methods because there are only 6 days left. The doctor does not explain any more than that, since he starts to think someone might be standing right outside his room and listening to what he is saying. Meanwhile, Mario is getting really mad at Ishihara and he tries to run away, but the nurse and Kumagai stop him before he can go any further. Kumagai tells Mario that he is only here to bring food for Sakuragi, and then he tells the nurse that he will take Mario back to the cell himself, because if Mario keeps staying around this place, he might also end up getting picked on and become a victim of the same harassment. After saying that, Kumagai also tells the nurse that Dr. Sasaki has been taking part in the bad treatment of Sakuragi, but he does not notice that the doctor is actually hiding nearby and listening to everything. That night, when Kumagai comes to bring food for Sakuragi, he suddenly finds out that Sakuragi is being forced to go through water torture inside the cell. Wanting to step in and help him, Kumagai tries to act, but he is caught off guard and ambushed by Ishihara before he can do anything. Sometime later, when Kumagai does not return to the hospital as he usually does, Mario starts to get worried and tries to leave on his own, but before he can get away, Ishihara shows up and gives a newspaper to Mario which says that Kumagai died in a car accident while driving drunk. Later on, the nurse comes to change Mario's bandages, but while she is doing it she suddenly begins to cry, and Mario asks her what her name is. She tells him that her name is Setsuko, and Mario then asks if she likes Sakuragi, which she admits she does, so Mario tells her that she should be the one to welcome him warmly when he finally comes back. After that, Mario returns to the school and explains everything to the others about what the doctor has been doing and about what happened to Kumagai. Since they all realize that the doctor and Ishihara will never let Sakuragi leave the hospital alive, Mario and the rest of the group decide to make a plan to rescue him and escape, even though they understand very well that if they are caught, they will all be sent straight to prison. The next day, Uncovered comes up with a plan to free Sakuragi and explains the whole idea to the others, pointing out that since it is Sunday there will not be too many guards around the place. He also adds that the guards are not the only ones who carry keys, because the doctor on duty also has one, so he suggests that one of them will need to pretend to be sick and then talk his way into the infirmary in order to get close enough. After hearing this, they all know it will be dangerous, but Joe steps forward and volunteers to go to the doctor's office himself, even though he fully understands the doctor's twisted and perverted desires and still chooses to take the risk. That night, Joe pretends to have a terrible stomachache and begins screaming loudly like he has lost his mind, which makes the guards rush in and eventually take him straight to the doctor's office. When the doctor starts examining him, Joe suddenly changes his tone and begins acting playful, even going so far as to flirt and wink at the doctor, which makes the doctor dismiss the guard by saying that Joe needs to stay there overnight. After the guard walks out and the two of them are alone, the doctor asks Joe why he is faking being sick, and Joe replies that if he does what the doctor wants, and then he should let him leave early instead. After finishing a long meal, Joe tells the doctor to wait for him in bed, and as soon as the lights go off, he quickly grabs a cloth rope and ties the doctor up tightly so he cannot move. Once that is done, Joe sneaks back to the cell and sets the other boys free, letting them escape from their locked rooms. When they finally reach Sakuragi's cell, Mario knocks Ishihara unconscious, and together they carefully carry Sakuragi away to safety. Meanwhile, one of the guards discovers Doctor tied up in the office and immediately sounds the alarm, alerting everyone to what has happened. However, Uncovered grabs the guard's attention, giving the others a chance to act, and he manages to cut off the electricity to the entire compound, including the searchlights, which plunges everything into darkness. At the front gate, Cabbage and Soldier stay behind to hold off the guards and make sure no one follows them. Outside the compound, Ishihara suddenly ambushes the group and tries to stab Sakuragi with a knife, but Mario reacts quickly and knocks Ishihara unconscious once again. After they finally escape and manage to avoid being caught, Mario feels a deep sense of sadness and depression over losing the others in the chaos, but Joe and Turtle remind him that it was his determination and courage that made it possible for them to save Sakuragi's life in the first place. After hearing about the escape, Nurse Setsuko meets Turtle, who looks like he has been secretly playing with his monster. Turtle tells her about Sakuragi and how badly he is hurt. She decides to draw a map and gives him directions to an unused farmhouse where they can hide and take care of Sakuragi. Later, the boys take Sakuragi to that farmhouse and manage to stop the bleeding, but they run out of medicine and bandages. Just then, Setsuko comes with medicine, food and other basic necessities, as she is determined to keep the promise she made to Mario that she would come back to check on Sakuragi. Afterward, Setsuko starts treating Sakuragi, but she begins to cry when she sees just how badly he is hurt and how miserable his condition is. Meanwhile, the three boys fall asleep, and since Uncovered and the others didn't kill anyone during the escape, they will not be sent to juvenile prison anymore. Meanwhile, Uncovered, Soldier, and Cabbage are thrown into solitary after getting beaten around like garbage, and they start to worry that they might have to deal with Ishihara and the doctor for another full year. Sitting alone, they begin to miss the other boys, already knowing it is going to be a long and painful year ahead of them. At the same time, Ishihara goes to see the doctor and tells him straight out that he needs to make sure the other boys end up dead. On the other hand, Setsuko tells the group that Sakuragi is finally awake and that he wants to speak to everyone. Sakuragi then tells them that they should return to the school right away. Back inside the school, Ishihara is already punishing Soldier, Cabbage, and Uncovered by using the same water torture that he once used on Sakuragi. Just then, the doctor shows up and tells Ishihara that Joe has finally come back on his own. Ishihara then asks Joe to explain where Sakuragi and the two boys are hiding, but Joe replies by telling him not to act so cringe, and he even grabs Ishihara's cigarette for himself. Their tough act quickly disappears and turns into fear when Joe explains that he already knows they were part of the reason Iaichi took his own life. He also makes it clear that Sakuragi has Iaichi's note, and that note alone is enough to send both the doctor and Ishihara straight to prison. Ishihara then sends Joe back to the cell with the others, where he explains that Sakuragi told him to come here and rescue the rest of them, and that they decided it with a game of rock, paper, and scissors. With this secret in his hands, things change, and from then on, the boys are no longer beaten or treated badly anymore. While Sakuragi stays behind to recover, Mario spends his time practicing boxing every day. Later, while walking through the market, Mario and Turtle come across a woman who is promoting boxing matches that are being held at a nearby American Army base. Mario steps into a boxing match against an American fighter but is completely crushed by the man's huge size and incredible strength. After the fight is over, the promoter woman, Lily, gives both Turtle and Mario some money and tells Mario that he needs to get stronger. Feeling embarrassed and full of shame, Mario makes up his mind that he will pay Lily back 10 times over in the future. When Mario comes back, Sakuragi starts training him in boxing so that he can win his next fight, and Mario practices a right feint, left punch combo over and over again until it feels completely natural. Later, Turtle shows up and tells him that he has already arranged Mario's next match, which will take place on January 28th. In the meantime, Turtle also earns some money by buying Western tobacco from Lily's boyfriend and selling it on the black market. At the school, Soldier finds out that he has been accepted into the Japanese Defense Force and will be leaving the reformatory on January 28th. Later on, while they are working together, Joe tells Soldier that he will let him know where the 3 boys are hiding, but Soldier shakes his head and says he doesn't want to go and give away their hideout. That night at the farmhouse, Setsuko shows everyone a picture of her family and explains that it is their custom to take a family photo every New Year. Hearing this, Turtle suddenly gets upset, storms out of the room, and heads straight back to work. Sakuragi explains to Setsuko that Turtle lost his whole family in the atomic bombings, so he has no photos left to remember them by. Hearing this makes Setsuko sad, but she then suggests that she and the boys should take a photo together, and later she borrows a camera from one of her coworkers at the hospital. However, the doctor overhears her talking about it and begins to suspect that she might actually be hiding one of the boys. The next day, Setsuko and the others gather to take their picture, but Ishihara secretly follows them and ends up finding out where Sakuragi is staying. Later that night, Mario and Turtle head out so they can give Sakuragi and Setsuko some private time. When the two of them are finally alone, Setsuko opens up and confesses her feelings to Sakuragi. The next day, Setsuko gives Sakuragi a coat that belonged to her father, which makes Mario and Turtle feel jealous. The boys then head out for Mario's boxing match, but suddenly Ishihara starts following them on his bike. After the weigh-in before the fight, Sakuragi tells Mario that Turtle went to the nearby market to sell some cigarettes. While Turtle is at the market, a police officer comes up to him, and he ends up getting caught. Meanwhile, Sakuragi and Mario start wondering why Turtle hasn't returned yet. Mario then asks Sakuragi if he plans to marry Setsuko, and Sakuragi admits that he does want to make her happy. On the other hand, Turtle realizes that Ishihara is behind it. He tries to call the others for help. Back at the match venue, Lily informs Sakuragi and Mario that Turtle has been taken, and Sakuragi immediately runs off to find a phone. Afterward, Mario steps into the ring, completely determined to win his match no matter what it takes. At the same time, the doctor starts planning how to get rid of both Sakuragi and Ishihara, because Ishihara is now addicted to speed and has become a serious problem. After that, Turtle tells Sakuragi that Ishihara is chasing them, that he is after the note, and that he even knows where their hideout is. Turtle urges Sakuragi to warn Setsuko as quickly as possible. But then Sakuragi notices Ishihara standing outside the building, so he warns Turtle that Ishihara is right there. Ishihara then speaks to Sakuragi, saying that he seems to be doing well while his own life is completely a mess because of him. Sakuragi leaves, determined to finish his fight with Ishihara once and for all. Soldier also leaves the school, cheered on by the other boys as he goes. Meanwhile, Mario gets ready for his match in the ring and tells Lily that he is going to make his opponent fall in the second round. At the same time, Sakuragi finally confronts Ishihara, who vents all his hatred at him and pulls out a gun. Sakuragi tries to stop him, reminding him that he overdosed on stuff and then went and got a gun. Ishihara, now maniacal, threatens to kill Setsuko and the other boys, and even says he wants to smell Setsuko's cheeks and do terrible things to her. Sakuragi reacts quickly, disarms him, and points the gun at the terrified Ishihara. Meanwhile, Mario continues his match against the American boxer and promises Lily he'll win. Back at Ishihara's hideout, he taunts Sakuragi, saying that he doesn't have the courage to actually shoot him. In response, Sakuragi fires a shot at the ground, which scares Ishihara and makes him start shouting. When Sakuragi runs out of bullets, Ishihara tries to attack him, but he can't do much since he is just an old man who only likes to talk tough. Fed up with being chased and threatened, Sakuragi hands the shocked Ishihara Iaichi's unaliving note and walks away. Meanwhile, inside the boxing ring, Mario tricks his opponent into lowering his guard and knocks him down, but the boxer gets back up before the referee can count him out. Ishihara, confused and angry, chases after Sakuragi, but Sakuragi tells him to stop and do whatever he wants with the note. He adds that if Ishihara still has any heart, the least he can do is put some flowers on that boy's grave. Meanwhile, Mario's hopes are crushed when his opponent gets back up at the 8 count. Ishihara, still not understanding that he lost, jumps on his bike and tries to follow Sakuragi, but he falls. He admits to Sakuragi that he only went along with the doctor's plan because he needed extra cash and didn't know Hayano would kill himself. He says he no longer wants to be a guard. Then, in a desperate move, Ishihara manages to stab Sakuragi in the abdomen with a knife. Sakuragi walks away, making Ishihara believe that he will never be able to kill him. Lily wants to stop the boxing match, but Mario is determined to keep fighting no matter what. Meanwhile, Sakuragi pulls the knife out of his own body and tries to make his way back to the boxing ring, even though he is losing a lot of blood. On his way, he is stopped by Dr. Sasaki and the police, who block his path. Afterward, Mario finally manages to knock out his opponent and win the match, but at the same time, the police tell Sakuragi to drop the knife. Sakuragi doesn't listen, his only thought is getting back to the boxing ring. Soon, an American officer orders him to stop, warning that they will shoot if he doesn't, but Sakuragi keeps moving forward. Then several army officers show up and in the chaos, Sakuragi is hit by gunfire all over his body. Sakuragi's final thoughts are about his friends and their dreams. Later, Mario goes back to the house and takes Setsuko with him in a car, along with Lily. Setsuko asks him about Sakuragi, and Mario starts crying as he tells her that he died. Later, at the morgue, Setsuko collapses in grief, leaving Mario to wonder where he and the others will go now that Sakuragi is gone. Some time goes by, and the 6 friends who are still alive finally get together at the tree just like they said they would do, and when they meet there, Soldier asks Mario to tell him what happened to Sakuragi and where he is now. Mario then explains to all of them that Sakuragi has died and is no longer with them, and Mario also shares with the group what Sakuragi wanted them to know before he passed away, which was that he wished for all of them to work hard and try their best to make their dreams come true. When Mario begins to walk away from the group, Turtle comes up to Mario and takes out a knife that he was hiding, asking if he is planning to kill someone. After this happens, Mario and all the other friends make a serious promise to each other that they will make Sasaki and Ishihara pay the price for what they did when they killed their friend Sakuragi. After that meeting, they all go their separate ways to start new chapters in their lives, with Joe getting a job working as a maid for a music band and Soldier going back to his regular training routine that he always does, while the other friends also decide to follow what they love and begin working at different jobs. But then, Uncovered finds out some important news and discovers that Sasaki is now trying to become the mayor by running in the election. When Uncovered learns this information, he suggests to the group that they should divide themselves into 2 smaller teams, where one team will go to the doctor and attend Sasaki's speech to see what he says and the other team will go after Ishihara to deal with him. However, when they talk about this plan, Mario tells everyone that he wants to handle Ishihara by himself and does not want anyone else to help him with that part. Afterward, Mario sets off to track down Ishihara while the others start a campaign of intimidation against Dr. Sasaki. Mario finally finds Ishihara, who is now a mentally broken speed addict. Ishihara, confused and terrified, mistakes Mario for Sakuragi and begs to be killed. Angry that Sakuragi lost his life because of such a pathetic man, Mario prepares to take revenge on Ishihara. As Sasaki moves smoothly through his election campaign, he suddenly sees the boys from cell 2 to 6 appear right in front of him, which makes him panic and rush to lock himself inside his office. Sitting there, he keeps telling himself over and over that maybe he is just overreacting and that nothing bad is actually going to happen, but then the phone rings, and he quickly answers it, arranging to meet the caller at a specific location. Right after the call, he steps out and tells the people around him that something urgent has come up, so he needs to leave immediately. When he arrives at the place, Sasaki walks toward the bed and begins taking off his clothes, but he is struck with horror when Joe suddenly shows up and points a gun at him. With Soldier's help, Joe forces Sasaki outside, and together they take him to a beach where the other boys are already waiting, and a huge hole has been dug near the edge of the water. Even though Sasaki desperately tries to bribe them with promises, the boys ignore his pleas and bury him in the sand up to his neck while the tide slowly starts to roll in toward him. As the water rises, Sasaki screams loudly for mercy, begging them not to leave, while the boys walk away saying that he will end up confessing everything in the end. Just when it looks like he is about to drown and die, Sasaki suddenly wakes up in a motel room, completely shaken and unable to figure out if what he just experienced was something real or only a terrifying nightmare. Later, Setsuko meets Mario, who has been waiting for her, and she takes him back to her apartment. While talking with her, Mario explains that he decided to spare Ishihara's life, saying that Ishihara was not even worth killing. The next day, Sasaki gets ready to deliver an important campaign speech, but as soon as he looks out at the crowd, he becomes nervous and flustered when he notices Joe and Cabbage sitting right there in the audience watching him closely. At the same time, inside the sound booth, Turtle, Soldier, and Uncovered secretly begin playing a recording of Sasaki's own voice, where he openly confesses to every one of his crimes, including his direct involvement in the deaths of Iaichi and Sakuragi. With his dark secrets exposed in front of everyone, Sasaki has no choice but to drop out of the mayoral race, and he also ends up losing control of his hospital completely. Setsuko kneels down at Sakuragi's grave and prays quietly, saying that both she and the boys can finally find peace and begin to move on with their lives. Later, at the tree that holds so many memories, Mario takes out the bullets that were once pulled from Sakuragi's body and carefully gives one to each of his friends as a symbol of what they went through together. With their revenge finally complete and their hearts no longer burning with anger, the boys decide it is time to leave and start chasing after the dreams they have always wanted. Before walking away, Mario turns to look back at the tree one last time, and in that moment he sees a vision of Sakuragi smiling at them. The next day, Mario goes over to Setsuko's house and tries to hand her the rent money, but she takes it, saying that he must already be having a hard enough time on his own. Mario, however, insists and explains that he has found a job now, and because of that he cannot let her keep treating him like a little kid who always needs to be taken care of, so after hearing this, Setsuko finally accepts the money. Afterward, Mario asks her if she is free tomorrow, but she tells him that she has to work a night shift, which makes Mario mention that one of his friends gave him 2 tickets to see a movie and he doesn't have anyone else to go with. She agrees to go along with him. Before leaving, Mario notices that Setsuko is wearing makeup, so he asks her if she is planning to go somewhere, and she explains that she has to go out with her parents. Mario then says goodbye and heads out, while Setsuko watches him go and realizes in her heart that Mario is starting to become more and more like Sakuragi. Later, Setsuko goes somewhere to meet a strange man over lunch. The next day, Setsuko gets a call from her father, who tells her that the same man from before still wants to marry her, and that their family is planning to take out a loan so the marriage can happen, and even though she does not show much emotion, Setsuko agrees to it. Later on, Mario and Setsuko finally go to watch the movie together, but during the film Mario falls asleep, and Setsuko laughs and teases him for it. After the movie, the two of them walk to a nearby park, where Mario shyly tells her that he would really like to take her out again sometime. A little later, Mario trains with Turtle and starts practicing some boxing, but he begins hitting the bag wildly and Turtle assumes that Mario must be acting that way because his date with Setsuko did not go as well as he had hoped. Later that evening, Joe sees Setsuko with the man from before and he quickly goes to tell Mario about it. At the same time, a strange man keeps abusing the bar's owner, and when Mario confronts him, to pay for the broken glasses. Mario then hits the man as he was asking for it, but then, the bar owner fires Mario for doing that. The next day, Mario goes back to the bar to apologize to the owner for what happened before, but just as he is there, 2 police officers suddenly arrive and announce that they are arresting him because the men from yesterday have filed a complaint against him. Later, at the police station, one of the officers tells Mario that he will have to serve 7 years in jail, leaving him shocked and worried. Meanwhile, all of the boys gather together at the bar and begin talking about making a plan to help Mario, but they agree that whatever they decide, they must keep it a secret from Setsuko so she does not get involved. The bar owner, still confused by everything, asks who these boys actually are, and they finally explain that they are the former Criminal 7 who once lived together in cell 2 to 6 at the Shonan Disciplinary School. Meanwhile, an SDF officer named Tadayoshi comes to meet Mario and coldly informs him that this time he will not be treated as a youth but as a real criminal, and that he is being sent back to juvenile. Later that night, all of the boys gather once again at the bar, and together they start making a serious plan to get Mario out, since Setsuko's wedding is only 7 days away and they refuse to let Mario fall into the hands of a prosecutor before then. On the other side, a prosecutor arrives to see Mario, and after listening to the long list of his past crimes, he slams Mario's head down onto the desk in anger and frustration, showing just how harsh things are about to get for him. Afterward, all of the boys gather together under the same tree, knowing that only 10 days are left before Mario's detention period comes to an end. During the meeting, Uncovered explains to everyone that they will have to split into 2 groups, with one group focusing on making a strong impression on the prosecutor, and for that they will also need to secure a proper written statement. Following the plan, Soldier and Turtle go to meet Kogure, the man whom Mario had beaten up before, hoping to get his cooperation, while at the same time Joe and Cabbage head over to Shonan Women's University to carry out their part of the task. Meanwhile, the prosecutor questions Mario and demands to know why he once beat up his homeroom teacher, which causes Mario to have a flashback about what really happened, but he chooses not to tell the prosecutor the truth. In reality, Mario had attacked his teacher in order to protect a girl named Yoshida Junko. At the same time, Joe and Cabbage track down Junko and ask her to write a written statement and sign it, but she breaks down crying and explains that she has never even told her parents about what happened. Through tears, she reveals that she had already been violated before Mario showed up to help her. Later, Joe and Cabbage board the train to head back, but while they are riding, Cabbage suddenly makes up his mind to return and try asking her once more. Later that night, Soldier and Turtle manage to find the man and ask him to help save Mario by writing the statement, but he immediately refuses, which makes Turtle lose his temper and get angry. Soldier, however, stays calm and pleads him to save Mario's life, but instead of agreeing, the man snatches the paper and angrily tears it to pieces right in front of them. Soldier then reminds him that at the very beginning Mario had let him hit him twice without fighting back, so now he himself will let the man hit him 3 times. After that, the man starts punching Soldier hard, but as he grows more nervous, he suddenly grabs a bottle and smashes it over Soldier's head. When blood begins to flow from the wound, Soldier looks at him and asks what would happen if he reported this whole case to the police. At that point, Soldier calmly pulls out another copy of the paper and demands that Yoshitaka sign it. The next day, Uncovered goes to visit Soldier in the hospital, and there he finds the signed statement that Soldier had fought so hard to get. Uncovered takes the paper straight to the prosecutor and shows it to him, but the prosecutor rips it apart, accusing Uncovered of threatening the man into signing it. Unable to hold back his emotions, Uncovered breaks down crying and says that no matter what, he just wants to save Mario, but the prosecutor refuses to listen and starts walking away. Desperate, Uncovered bows deeply and begs him to reconsider. At that exact moment, Turtle and Cabbage arrive, bringing Junko with them, and she bravely tells the prosecutor everything that really happened, explaining how back then Mario never told anyone the truth in order to protect her. She adds that since Mario has 5 true friends who care so much about him, that alone should be proof enough of his worth. Hearing Junko's words, the prosecutor remembers his own friend, and it is then revealed that Uncovered is actually the son of that very friend. After thinking it over, the prosecutor finally declares that in both of Mario's cases, he had only used violence in order to protect someone else, so instead of jail time he will be released after paying a fine. Mario is left in complete shock at this sudden decision, and afterward he heads downstairs where Turtle is already waiting for him. Turtle takes out the money he has prepared and hands it to Mario so he can pay off the fine right away. The next day, all of the boys gather together at the same bar to relax, but Turtle and Uncovered decide to go out on their own because Turtle wants to help Uncovered find a cute girl. Turtle takes him to meet a strange woman who promises to introduce a girl to Uncovered, and at first Uncovered is nervous but curious. However, the moment he looks inside and actually sees the girl, he is completely shocked. Instead of looking cute, she looks more like John Cena than any real girl, and Uncovered panics so much that he immediately runs away as fast as he can. Meanwhile, Mario meets up with Setsuko and she apologizes to him and tells him that she is going to get married. Mario suddenly leans in and kisses her, but Setsuko pulls back and says that even though 18 months have passed since Sakuraji's death, she still hasn't been able to forget him. She also tells Mario that he can't choose a woman like her, but still, Mario tells her that he loves her. That night, Mario and Setsuko spend time together, playing a small game. The next morning, Mario wakes up and finds that Setsuko is gone, but on the table, she has left him a warm breakfast and a photo of the 3 of them together with Sakuraji, the one they took earlier. Later, Joe comes to Mario and tells him that today is Setsuko's wedding day. Hearing this, Mario stands up and says he should at least show his face to her. He rushes out until he finally reaches the bridge. There, he sees Setsuko leaving in her wedding dress. She looks back and notices him, giving him a smile, and Mario smiles back, accepting everything in that moment. Later that night, Mario and the boys have some drinks together, laughing and messing around like always. But the next morning, Mario tells Cabbage that he's planning to go to Tokyo. Earlier, the bartender had told him that a friend was opening a new shop in Shibuya and was looking for a good bartender. He suggested that Mario should take the chance and sharpen his skills in Tokyo. Meanwhile, the older workers at Joe's job keep treating him badly and making him do unfair things, but Joe does not give up on his dream and stays focused on wanting to become a famous singer someday. Joe decides to take Turtle with him to a drinking place where grown-ups go to have fun and listen to music. Turtle hears the person who owns the bar getting very angry at the manager because the manager did not bring the person who was supposed to sing songs that night. When Turtle hears this, he tells Joe about it, and then Turtle goes up to the bar owner and tells him that Joe knows how to sing really well. When Joe gets up on the stage and starts singing his songs, all the people in the bar go completely wild with excitement and start cheering loudly. It turns out that this band was an enemy to what Joe was working at, so when Joe returns, his older workers starts beating him. When the bullies leave, one of the weird-looking guy approaches Joe and asks if he ever drink mercury, saying he will lose his voice if he does. He then tries to force Joe to drink it, but Joe swears that he will never sing again, so the guy lets him go. On his way back, Joe meets a strange woman who tells him that he doesn't belong in that trash band. She gives him her visiting card and says she can turn him into a big star in just 3 months. She later takes him to her apartment and tells him that if he really wants to be a star, he has to follow her orders. There, she takes advantage of him, and though Joe feels uneasy, he agrees because he believes it's the only way to reach his dream. That night, Mario finally finishes his packing, and when he opens his door, he is surprised to see Cabbage standing outside, who has just moved to Tokyo, and it turns out that he is now his neighbor. At the same time, Turtle also comes over and tells them that they should celebrate together, and then Turtle starts explaining that Joe sang a song at an event and all the women who listened to him ended up falling in love with him. On the other side, the woman who is with Joe asks him about the reason he wants to be a singer, and Joe tells her about his past, saying that he once had a sister and that both of them were left alone when their parents abandoned them at a very young age. Joe does not know where his sister is, so he decides that if he becomes famous, he might be able to find her one day. The woman listens to his story and she likes it, and from that day on, Joe begins to sing without holding back while following Kawamata's instructions. A little later, Turtle runs into Joe and the older woman who supports him, and Turtle asks if the lady is just a friend of his. After that, Turtle also tells Joe to come meet him once he is free so that they can all sit together again and celebrate the new year. But instead of agreeing, Joe tells Turtle not to bother him anymore, and then he turns away and leaves. That night, Turtle becomes very angry at Joe and starts telling everyone about what happened. Soldier thinks that the woman with Joe might actually be his manager and that she could have been the one who told him to break his ties with them. The next day, Joe is unable to focus properly on his work, so Yamauchi advises him to take a short break and then asks if he really has ended his friendship with the friends he once had back at disciplinary school. Outside, Joe sees Mario waiting, and Mario asks if they can talk for a moment, but Joe refuses right away. Mario stops him again and explains that it will not take much time, so Joe agrees and follows. Mario takes him to a quiet spot and tells him that they all understand he is fighting his own battle, but no matter what happens, they will always stand by his side. After saying this, Mario hands him a slip with his address written on it and tells him to make sure that whenever he sings on a big stage, the front seat should always be saved for Turtle. Later on, the woman talks to Joe about the Western Festival, and it turns out that Joe himself will be performing there as one of the singers. At the same time, in a cabaret, a group of beautiful girls are chatting excitedly about the debut of a handsome singer who is going to appear at the upcoming Western Festival. Among those girls is Meg, but unlike the others, she shakes her head and refuses to go to the festival. Joe's former band members go to the woman and tell her that they want to perform music with Joe again because she took him away from their group without asking them first. However, the woman says that Joe will never sing with third-rate band, but the guy pulls out his gun, but she tells him to put it away and explains that the Fukumoto gang protects her and will help her if anyone tries to hurt her. When the manager hears about the gang, he gets so scared and runs away quickly with all his band members. On the other hand, Mario gives a concert ticket to Turtle and explains that he found it in the mail, saying that Joe wants Turtle to be there more than anyone else. At the same time, Meg finally discovers that the new singing star everyone has been talking about is actually Joe, and she learns that he is planning to perform at the Western Festival. On the other hand, Joe is getting himself ready to leave for the theater, but right then, his old band members suddenly walk into the studio and begin threatening the woman once again. Afterward, Joe sends his teacher's son to Mario's house. Afterward, the festival finally begins, and even Meg is standing in the crowd, waiting and hoping to see Joe perform, but at the same time, Joe is actually being beaten badly by the gang members. On the other side, the teacher's son accidentally loses Mario's address when he bumps into someone on the street and the slip of paper falls away. Back at the studio, things get worse as the gang leader points a gun straight at Joe, but Joe's teacher quickly steps in and tells him to stop, reminding everyone that Joe once used to be his own band member and now he is being treated like this. Meanwhile, someone walks up to the teacher's son and asks if the note he dropped belongs to him, and when the son looks closely, it is actually Mario himself. Mario tells him that he will be the one to save both Joe and his father. At the same time, back at the studio, the gang leader pulls the trigger and shoots Joe's teacher in the shoulder, then starts trying to beat Joe as well, and just when he is about to shoot Joe directly, Turtle and the others suddenly arrive to stop him. Mario knocks out one of the men with a single strong punch, showing his strength right away. Turtle rushes over to help Joe stand up while Cabbage and Mario team up to take down the other gang members one by one. However, in the middle of the fight, the manager suddenly raises his gun and points it straight at Mario, but at that moment Cabbage quickly distracts him, giving Mario the chance to move in, and together Mario and Cabbage knock the manager out in an instant. Afterward, Fukumoto gang arrives but gets shocked to find out that these kids managed to beat this gang on their own. They all decide to head straight for the theater, but the woman warns them that they will never be able to make it on time. The boys only smile with confidence and say that nothing is impossible for them. As they are about to leave, the leader of the Fukumoto gang steps forward and hands his car keys to Mario, and Mario quickly accepts them. After that, they drive off and finally arrive at the theater, and when Joe goes inside with Turtle supporting him, he is shocked and confused to see that the entire theater is completely empty. Afterward, Mario, the woman, and the Fukumoto gang arrive at the theater, and Joe turns to the woman and apologizes, telling her that there will be no next time for him. She replies that performing in this festival was the very first and also the last chance for an unknown clown like him. Hearing her words, Mario becomes angry and demands to know if she is trying to put all the blame on Joe, but before he can say more, the leader of the Fukumoto gang steps in and stops him. After that, the woman walks away and says that she does not ever want to see Joe's face again. Joe begins to cry and asks Cabbage if people like them, the graduates of the disciplinary school, are really nothing more than the trash of humanity. At that moment, Turtle comes into the hall and holds up the ticket that Joe himself had sent for him, and he gently asks Joe to sing for all of them. Hearing this, Joe steps onto the stage and starts singing his song, and while he is performing, someone suddenly enters the hall. To Joe's shock, it turns out to be his sister, and she tells him to keep singing the rest of the song, so Joe continues with tears in his eyes. The very next day, Mario asks Turtle how he managed to find Joe's sister, and Turtle explains that when he was arguing with the guard to let him watch the show, Meg came up to him and asked if he knew Joe. Later on, Mario and the others visit the Fukumoto gang's hideout to thank the leader for helping them, but during their visit, the head leader suddenly shows up. He looks at them and asks if they were the ones who took down that fool Tsubuchi before his own men had the chance to get there. After asking this, he offers them the chance to work under him, but Mario refuses right away and says that he would rather live as a respectful person than become someone who follows a gang leader. Later on, Mario asks Joe about what plans he has for the future, and Joe replies that he and his sister had hoped to live together, but with his current financial situation, it is not possible for them to do that right now. During this time, the two goofy clowns, Turtle and Uncovered, cannot stop staring at Joe's attractive sister and keep acting silly around her. After this, everyone begins to enjoy the party together, laughing and celebrating, but Cabbage seems quieter and a little different from how he usually is. Later, the other boys leave to go do their own jobs and activities while Cabbage decides to stay behind with Uncovered and Turtle. When they are alone together, Cabbage tells them the truth about how he feels inside and admits that he thinks his life does not have any important purpose like the other boys do. He explains to them that he has made up his mind to go and learn how to work with the Fukumoto gang because he wants to find something meaningful to do with his time. Right after Cabbage says this, Turtle speaks up quickly and tells him that this type of dangerous work is not the right choice for someone who has such a good heart like Cabbage does. Later, Turtle and Uncovered plans to make Cabbage feel comfortable in what he wants to do. The next day, they force him to sell stamina-increasing medicine for men, so they can perform well in bed. Cabbage quickly grabs people's attention, so Turtle asks him to prove that his drug really works. However, Cabbage breaks a stone first and then eats powder. Uncovered tries to cover up his mess by buying in front of the people, but Cabbage refers to him with his name and everyone understands that they are just being fooled by these idiots. Afterward, Cabbage visits the Fukumoto gang's hideout and asks them to hire him, and he immediately gets hired. Later on, Turtle and Uncovered tell the others about what Cabbage decided, and Mario suggests that they should wait and see how things turn out before taking any action. Meanwhile, the Fukumoto gang leader gives the responsibility of watching over Cabbage to another member, who makes him do simple cleaning work around the place. When the leaders leave to attend a meeting, there is a sudden knock at the door, and Tanaka goes over to check who it is. But the moment he opens it, a man suddenly jumps on him with a sword, forcing his way inside the house, and then he puts the sharp weapon right against Cabbage's neck. The next day, Turtle runs quickly to Mario and tells him in a panic that Cabbage might be dead, explaining everything about the situation he heard about. Afterward, they all hurry to the nearby hospital hoping to find Cabbage, but the nurse at the counter tells them that there is no patient by the name of Cabbage there. Instead, they come across the man who was last seen with Cabbage waiting in the hospital. When they ask him where Cabbage is, he demands that Mario hand over the knife he always keeps hidden with him. After taking control, the man tells all three boys that they must go to Hibiya Park exactly at 7. Later on, they finally find Cabbage and to their surprise, he is in the middle of a fight against a sumo wrestler. After the match, they gather around him, and Cabbage explains that when the intruder suddenly appeared, he panicked and knocked the man out without even realizing what he was doing, and afterward he quickly called for an ambulance. Because of this, the head leader became very angry, so he brought Cabbage to the wrestling ring, saying that life in the Yakuza is not suitable for someone like him. The next day, everyone gathers around Joe and tells him that his performance was amazing, and after spending some time together, they all leave to go back to their own places, except for Uncovered and Turtle who stay behind. Uncovered then invites Turtle over to his house, and afterward they sit down together to eat. While they are eating, Uncovered's mom kindly tells Turtle that he is welcome to come over whenever he likes, and her warm words melt Turtle's heart. After that, Turtle looks at Uncovered and asks why he suddenly invited him to his house, since his mom mentioned that Uncovered has never invited anyone over before. Uncovered explains that his mom manages all the food by herself because they are extremely poor, but the real reason he invited Turtle over is because he knew Turtle would never make fun of him. He then tells Turtle that his dream is to become someone who can help other people. Hearing this, Turtle takes out some money and gives it to Uncovered as support. The next day, Turtle goes to visit Uncovered's house again, but his mom tells him that Uncovered has gone out to meet him, even though it is actually a lie. Before leaving, Turtle kindly gives her a small gift to show his respect and care. On the other hand, Uncovered is busy wasting money by spending his time with a girl named Eri, who tells him that she cannot leave her job until she finishes paying off her father's debt. Uncovered quickly says that he will help her pay the debt, but Eri tells him to start acting like a responsible man instead of throwing away his money by coming to see her all the time. Meanwhile, Uncovered's brother goes to Turtle and asks if he has been lending money to their brother, wanting to know the truth about the situation. Later that night, Turtle confronts Uncovered and tells him that he already knows he has been going to strange places, but Uncovered responds by asking if his mother is also aware of it. Turtle tries to reason with him and says that he should not worry about his family while wasting everything for a street woman, but Uncovered gets angry and he begins insulting Turtle for not having a family or even a girl of his own. Uncovered raises his voice and grabs everyone's attention, so Turtle quietly hands him more money and then walks away. After that, Uncovered goes back to see Eri once again and asks her to run away with him, but she refuses, but in the end, she finally tells him to wait for her at a temple. Afterward, Uncovered goes to Mario and starts begging him for money, but Mario refuses, so Uncovered leaves in frustration. Outside, Soldier stops him and tells him to follow, and once they are away, Soldier begins beating him like a sandbag. Suddenly, Mario and Turtle rush over and tell Soldier to stop, but Soldier shouts that he has to knock some sense into Uncovered before he ends up doing something terrible. As his anger grows, Soldier loses control and delivers one more powerful punch that knocks Uncovered out completely. The next day, Uncovered wakes up and Mario hands him the money that Soldier had left behind to pay for the glasses he had broken. Seeing the money, Uncovered asks Mario to tell Turtle that he feels sorry for saying mean things to him, but Mario explains that Turtle already said they will always stay friends and that Uncovered should never come back to them. Later on, Uncovered lies to his mother, telling her he is going to work, and quietly walks to the place where he had planned to meet someone special. During this same time, Eri manages to break free from her situation and travels to a completely different place, where she ends up meeting another man. Meanwhile, Uncovered spends long hours sitting alone at the spot where he had chosen to wait, and during that time his mind keeps circling back to all the things Turtle and Soldier had told him earlier about Eri and the way he was wasting himself on her. As time passes, Uncovered continues to wait for Eri, but she never shows up, and instead, Turtle arrives at the spot. Turtle tells Uncovered that it's time to go back home with him, but just at that moment, Uncovered suddenly faints. The next day, he wakes up at Mario's place, and Cabbage shows him a newspaper that contains some shocking news. Uncovered begins reading it carefully and discovers that Eri has tragically committed suicide along with a college student. He immediately rushes to the trashy place owner and asks angrily who is going to take care of Eri's sister, who is still going to school. The hub's owner starts laughing and tells him that Eri never had any siblings at all. In fact, he explains, Eri's mother sold her to him and then ran away with another man. The boys search everywhere for Uncovered but cannot find him anywhere, so in the end, they decide to trust him and wait patiently, hoping that he will come back on his own. As time goes by, Uncovered finally returns home and hands some money to his mom, apologizing for stealing money and for making everyone worry about him. He then sits down and confesses everything to his mom, telling her the full story of what happened. Afterward, Uncovered also gives Turtle the money he had borrowed back, showing that he is finally taking responsibility for his actions. Later, an old man walks up to Turtle and asks if he sells cigarettes individually, but Turtle politely refuses and explains that he only sells 10 packs at a time per carton. The old man feels a little embarrassed for even asking, so Turtle decides to give him one cigarette. As the old man starts to leave, he asks Turtle for his address because he wants to be able to smoke another cigarette there before he dies. Later, Turtle tells Mario everything that happened and Mario wonders why Turtle has never shown him his mansion yet. Turtle just laughs and says that he will show it to him sometime in the future. In reality, Turtle's house is tiny, barely bigger than a pack of cigarettes, and just as he realizes that he is completely out of cigarettes, he feels so shocked and overwhelmed that he almost faints. The next day, Turtle goes to Lily's house to buy more cigarettes, but she tells him that she is moving to America because her husband has received orders to relocate. She also kindly tells him that he can come with her if he wants, saying that she believes he can make a life and work wherever he goes. Later that night, as Turtle returns to his tiny home, he suddenly feels a strange feeling in his body and falls down onto his knees. In that moment, he is reminded of the terrible bombing incident in which he lost his entire family. Turtle wakes up in his room but his body feels strange and makes standing difficult. A woman arrives at his door saying Mr. Sugi wants to meet him. Though Turtle doesn't remember knowing Sugi, he follows her to meet the old man who previously took his cigarette. Sugi, a moneylender, shows Turtle his house built after the war and offers him work collecting payments from customers daily. Later, all the boys meet at Lily's place where a man announces her contract expired and she must leave immediately. When the man laughs at Lily, Mario punches him, prompting an American to point a gun at Mario's head. Lily pays the man money, explaining she'll leave tomorrow, and then reveals she scammed the general who stole her business money anyway. The trio decides to take Lily with them, and Cabbage offers his room since he's leaving for a wrestling tour. The next day, Lily wakes up, and Mario explains that she drank too much the previous night. When Lily calls herself just a poor street woman, Mario encourages her, telling her not to worry because they will help her. Since Turtle still hasn't shown up, Lily takes Mario to Turtle's tiny house, where they find him almost unconscious on the floor. They quickly rush him to the hospital, and the doctor tells them that Turtle has a fever but should recover soon. However, the doctor admits that their small hospital cannot provide a proper diagnosis for his condition. While Lily cuts an apple for Turtle, he asks her about the money she had stolen and what her plans are. She tells him that she wants to open a store someday but reassures him not to worry, saying that he is just a kid and should focus on himself. Later, as Mario and Lily leave the hospital, Mario explains that Turtle survived an atomic bomb and really needs to be examined at a bigger hospital. Mario begins to cry quietly because he does not have enough money or connections to provide Turtle with proper treatment. The next day, the nurse discovers that Turtle has already left the hospital without telling anyone. Meanwhile, Lily takes Mario to the US base, believing that the Americans have the best medical technology to treat Turtle properly. At the same time, Turtle gives all his savings to Sugi and asks him for a loan of 300,000 yen, but Sugi only offers him 3,000 yen instead. When Turtle asks if he can start the same business as Sugi, he agrees, but only if Turtle accompanies him first. Later, at a public bath, Sugi shows Turtle the brutal scars on his. Afterward, the man throws some money at Turtle, saying it is for the interest, but Turtle refuses to accept it and insists that the borrower must hand over the payment in person just like he promised. When the man orders Turtle to leave, it makes Turtle angry. The furious man grabs Turtle and slams him against the wall before heading back into his house, but Turtle yells after him, telling him to pick up the scattered money and apologize to Sugi. During the same time, Mario and Lily run quickly to find Sugi and ask him in a worried way if he knows where Turtle goes. Sugi tells them that Turtle goes out to get the money that people still need to pay him back, and if Turtle comes back without getting killed, then he will give Turtle the loan money that Turtle asks him for. Mario feels confused and wonders why Turtle needs such a big amount of money, and Sugi says that Turtle tells him it is to help his family members. This information makes Lily realize right away that Turtle is putting himself in serious danger just to help her out with her problems. Mario knows he has to go look for Turtle right now, but Lily says that she wants to come along with him because Turtle is getting himself hurt specifically because of the difficult situation she is dealing with. Right at that moment, they see Turtle walking toward them with a big, scary-looking man walking right next to him. The moment they see all the cuts and bruises on Turtle's body, Lily hits him really hard on his face and starts crying a lot because she finally understands that Turtle thinks of her like his real family member. The large, threatening man gives the interest money directly to Sugi and tells him that Turtle almost bites completely through his arm muscle, which is what makes him decide he needs to come and make the payment himself in person. Sometime later, Mario gets a visit from Jeffrey, who is the American boxer, and Jeffrey asks him to come visit the army camp with him. Mario agrees to go and gets watched by a professional boxing trainer who says that Mario's broken right hand will make it completely impossible for him to box anymore. The trainer sends Mario to a doctor who might be able to fix his hand and make it better. The doctor tells him that the surgery will bring his right hand back to normal with only a 30% chance of working, but he warns Mario that if the surgery does not work, then he will never be able to use his hand again. Mario takes the deal because he remembers Sakuragi's words about taking chances when they come up, and the surgery works perfectly and fixes his hand. When his hand gets completely better, Mario goes to visit Sakuragi's mother to show his respect for her and get Sakuragi's boxing boots from her before he goes to his boxing match. Mario uses his fixed hand and beats his opponent completely in his boxing match and wins. Later people see him at the tree where he and his friends cut their life dreams into the bark, and he talks to Sakuragi, who is already dead. After a sudden rainstorm starts and ends quickly, Mario sees an image of Sakuragi, who asks him what his dream really is, and Mario tells him that his dream is helping his friends make their own dreams come true. And so, the survivors of Shonan Reformatory finally walk their own paths, carrying the lessons of the past and the memory of a friend who taught them how to fight, not just with their fists, but for their future. If you want to follow us as we explore more stories like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe.